But first and foremost, we're sending our Spurs off to summer camp, off to spring break camp, as we're sending our kids up north to Austin for South by Southwest, and that alone is a scary proposition to any parent who's sending their kid off to Austin for any reason, either to go to some weird liberal arts school or to party on Guadalupe and Sixth Street. They're going to Austin, and all the weirdness that ensues. I got this email from the Spurs PR. They're having a free concert tonight up there in Austin.
Is it Radiohead?
You know what? I bet Radiohead might be Pop's favorite band. Would that not be ideal? Radiohead?
It would, in a lot of ways. So, yeah, but that won't be happening.
Sign up. If you're watching, you know what I'm talking about. Look how the high quality gear that might await you if we see you on March the 25th.
March the 25th, Rob will be there with a cup in his hand.
That's how I will. And so will you. And wearing that fancy shirt. I'm consistently impressed with your country club attire.
Do you know what brand this is? I think my dad bought me this polo, but
it is the name of this Hager.
You're gonna love this. This brand is literally called "You Suck at Golf."
Oh, I know that brand. Yeah, You Suck at Golf. They're social media. They got good shirts.
Yeah. So yeah, but
I like that because it's got the crispy collar, the stiffer collar.
Ooh, I like this question from Goldfinger123. RJ, are the Spurs going to come back sober, or are they going to come back to San Antonio drunk?
Here's my worry, and in a broader sense, I think that is a valid question to ask.
Well, I think I've told the story recently because it is spring break about SBX, Spring Break 2010. Went with my my fellow Ags to South Padre Island, and I actually went home for a few days after, and I got a henna tattoo, which is a fake tattoo for anyone who's unaware. It's temporary. It's like, I don't know, like 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever. And when I walked in the door, I said, "Mom, heads up."
Oh, see, you did it wrong.
No, you say that, but one time for April Fools, I tried to trick my parents. I don't think I've ever told you this before. I tried to trick them and tell them that I got casted to be on The Real World because I thought that would really upset them. And they were both all, "Oh my gosh, we're so proud of you." And I was like, "Oh man, like you ruined this." Like, So yeah, I wasn't kind of feeling the henna tattoo ploy at that point. But anyway,
I had a tattoo from my parents for about 5 years.
Good for you.
Yeah,
mine was on my back, and I was wearing a tank top because it was spring break. Woo! But anyway, I think that's what the Spurs are coming back with. They're coming back with a henna tattoo, something that represents their time there, but that is temporary and will fade throughout time.
As we start looking toward the future, and we obviously have to, the Spurs have been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. It cannot happen no matter what they do. And as we start counting down the regular season games, we know the bare minimum for teams or for players to receive their just desserts is 65 games. And we know that Victor's getting closer and closer to that. So when you start thinking of the future, you start looking, draft picks, things that are going on in the outside world. And the president of basketball operations, the guy that's over everything in the building, not the COO, but the guy that's running the day-to-day, the president, had an opportunity to speak to the press. And this question was asked of the president of the San Antonio Spurs. This is his response.
We all have opinions every day. Coaches meet every day, and we talk about that sort of thing, along with everything else. So when the season ends, obviously we'll sit down, with management and have that discussion. But whether it's a young team or an older team, every team has that discussion. There are changes made every year. So that just goes with the territory.
So as we come to the end of the season, decisions are going to have to start being made. First and foremost, I think, as Victor sits and, we put him on the shelf, bubble wrap him, there'll be somebody that steps up, and that'll kind of be a signification of this guy might make it, might not. But I think as we head toward the last quarter of the season, head through that, I think this is going to be one of the primary things to follow.
Yeah, it's I'm not, this is, people talk about the stages of grief. I don't know where I'm at in my stages of the Spurs. It's so strange that they have the ability to rope us in so quickly because we're so eager to buy in, right? We're so anxious to say, all right, this is it. It happened. It worked. Kudos. Great. Awesome job. You did it. You pulled it off. We did it. We arrived. But then, games like the last couple happen and you kind of come back down to earth. The clock hits midnight and you remember that this is kind of a pumpkin. And so I don't know. I know it's a fun week with some for them and with some fun energy because of the whole Austin experience and whatnot. And it just feels like this week doesn't feel so much, and things haven't lately felt so much about the basketball of it all as opposed to like we're so
the event of it all.
Right. And we're so like even normally this season we've been so concerned with the like future of it all that it's hard to focus on the actual basketball game to game because we're future planning. You know what I mean? Like nothing about the moment really matters.
Okay, so as we evaluate, there's also a draft process, and as we begin the tournament, there's guys that need to, oh man, and there's guys to be watching. I mean, the Spurs have 2 top 10 picks, maybe only one, depending on how things shake out with Toronto. But here they stand. There's talent to be harvested, and this again is the president of the Spurs organization.
I don't pretend to know, what we're going to do. We have a lot of possibilities ahead of us, whether it's money in the bank or draft picks, being creative, trade-wise, all those things are on the table. But aren't they for every team? I don't know why we're any different. We're just younger.
They don't know what they're going to do.
What do you mean you don't know why you're any different? Like, I mean, and I understand
all of that just was galling to me.
I understand keeping cards close to the vest. I understand you've got to say things. I understand you've got to go, especially this week, you're going to go through a lot of media. You're going to go through a lot of, discussions or panels or by Southwest calls them, festivals or whatever.
It's a panel.
But, right. But, and so like, I'm not expecting you to come out here and tell us like the whole plan or any real part of the plan, but when nobody is buying this, and I don't say that disrespectfully. I mean, but to claim like I don't know why we're different. I don't know why everyone is so.
Why are you looking at us?
Why is there so much attention on us right now? This is a normal thing for us. We're in the middle of a normal run. Let's relax. We're all adults here. You know what I mean? We can all kind of be straight up about this. So every now and then it'd be nice to have a little bit more kind of give in that sense.
You can't. And on the other side, notice on the first cut, Pop came and said, well, we're going to sit down with management. Dude, you are management. What do you mean we're going to sit? You can't be the good and the bad cop as the head coach. And really, most coaches can only survive in the situation they're in as the bad cop. You have to be absolutely, completely honest in everything you say to your players. Because not only are you in charge of their day-to-day, their playing time, you're also at the end of the day in charge of how they're getting paid. And as the coach and the president and the guy that's in between, that's, Brian Wright, yeah, you're GM, sure. And maybe he doesn't delve in too much of the money, but as the guy that has as much say as to the players as he denies having, which he has more than he leads on. Let's not buy the Albert Einstein doddering professor. And I don't know. I was asleep when we drafted Wemby. I wasn't sure who we were going to take. Don't buy that. Don't buy any of that. But as we get to the twilight of his career, maybe there's a little bit too much going on the plate here. If you're telling me you don't have any idea, and I'm going to take you for what you're telling me, well, maybe you got too much to do.
Or maybe you're in over your head.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe you need a little bit of help. Maybe we should bring in some other mind someplace else to kind of help you along the way, at least in the talent acquisition phase. Because in the last year's draft, when you told me you were asleep on a plane and your son-in-law had to wake you up and tell you who the Spurs drafted, or at least when they won the lottery, you might be too disassociated with the process. Or if you're so involved and you won't let us know, I'd kind of like a little bit of transparency. One or the other. But right now, I don't have a whole lot of faith.
I don't know how you could, again, if you're taking this at face value, right? And if you're not, then it requires a level of assumption that there's some sort of fibbing going on here. I think as we kind of round out Wemby's rookie season, and I know there's still, a significant amount of time to go, but we're on the downward side of this. from a time perspective. And we'll get all into the Olympics. You're going to wear any France gear? You're going to be a trader, by the way? For the Olympics?
Never,
Okay.
because most of their stuff has a chicken on it.
I'm just making. Oh, okay. Like we've had a lot of time to reflect and to look back, and compare this to Tim, right? And I think if there's anything that the Spurs really miscalculated, it was the worldwide level of interest in this, and
True.
how their every step would be completely and totally picked apart and microanalyzed and microassessed, not just by Spurs fans, but by NBA fans and by, French fans, right? Just because of the accessibility to information that exists that didn't the last time they did this. And so you kind of can't do this the exact same way. And it's appropriate, I think, that kind of comes to the center as they go to Austin for like a push on the brand. It's, you've got to be perfect. You have to be perfect. You have to say the perfect things. You have to do the perfect things. You have to walk and talk in an absolutely perfect way, or else, you leave yourself susceptible to all sorts of criticism and judgment.
My sister lives in Austin. She is a total Austinite. Zilker Park. She lives in Zilker Park, can walk to most festivals there at the park. So she's ate up. She's annoying as all get out. Music snob, taco snob, just the worst of every Austin thing you could think of. That's my sister.
But you love her.
Oh, I love her. I mean, don't you say anything about her. But but that's kind of it. And I was talking to her my brother-in-law, as South by South was going on. And while he mentioned something that I thought is very relevant in this day and age, that Austin, even though it's not what it was and it's a little bit more corporate, adds a little bit of cool flavor to the Spurs. It does point out to the rest of the world that we are right next to Austin, which is the hottest place for a lot of things. So it does add a cool quotient in helping and recruiting free agents, knowing that Austin is at least at the very minimum affiliated with the Spurs. It's something that we can say, hey, you come and play for the Spurs. Austin is right there, baby. You want to go see shows. You want to live the nightlife that San Antonio has never been able to offer you. Suddenly Austin offers you a sleek, slick Texas cool that the Spurs don't want, nor do they try to offer. So my brother-in-law brought that up. So while I'm angry with the fact that we're having to share them, I do think there's some benefit for Pop as they do look into free agency and get going there. That being said, I will never like what's going on this week.
It feels
no
weird.
Team has to do this. What other team has to deal with this?
Well, I would equate it to, but this is not an individual team thing. Like when leagues send a game overseas or to an international place, you know what I mean? They send them to a different country to play, like the Astros are going to play a series in Mexico this year. But I mean, it's to grow the brand of the league. You know what I mean? Not the individual team. So that's the closest thing.
If it was overseas and the NBA came to us and said, you know what, you Spurs fans, you're going to have to sacrifice 4 games a year, and they're going to go play in Paris and Milan. I go, I get it.
To that point, the answer, I guess, if we have to answer your question, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have to do this with London. London is their option.
So we think of what the Spurs are being equated to. This is a multi-title champion team. This is a team that is hosted at the bare minimum 3 of the 25 greatest players to ever lace it up. And it should be 5, but I'll say 3 if we really want to pick. But we'll say 5 of the top 40 players to ever play. The best coach to ever walk the sidelines, arguably. And this is a team that has to farm out a couple of games to grow its brand. And we are the equivalent, after all of these titles, to the Jacksonville Jaguars. At the end of the day, when you put it in those parcels, Austin does matter to the greater world, because with just us, we're Jacksonville. And that sucks. It hurts. It hurts to think about. It hurts to talk about. And every year it's thrown in my face.
It's frustrating. I mean, I don't want to act like completely woe is us, because the proximity, between San Antonio and Austin is fair to note that, the circumstances aren't identical across all professional sports teams. And to that point, I mean, pick the team. Like the Cowboys play in Arlington. They don't play in Dallas. You know what I mean? The Niners play in Santa Clara. They don't play in San Francisco, right? Like those things matter, right? Like, as they are relevant to this conversation. And I agree that, there's a difference between, Austin and, as opposed to if the Spurs played in like Bernie, you know what I mean? Or something like that. Like that would be a little bit more,
of a bedroom,
I think, eye for an eye. But so it's not like the most egregious sin that can be committed in my mind. It's not fun. I agree with you. But while I think the Jaguars are the most notable comp, at the very least, the like tax here is, no pun intended, because of what may be involved with the city of Austin. But the tax here is like, oh, you got to drive like an hour, as opposed to like, imagine if you're the Jaguars and you're a season ticket holder or whatever. It's like, hey, we're going to take one game and one of, by the way, 8 or 9 games, and we're going to put it in London. There's a bit of a difference. It's a much more difficult
we're
pill to
promoting
swallow.
the brand, and the Spurs are the beneficiary of that. Here, it appears that we being Spurs are just in a situation where San Antonio isn't enough. And you're consistently reminded of it every year that, oh, by the way, in March and April, when things are really going to start mattering here in a couple of years, these games that we're going to miss are going to have playoff implications in a year or two. It's not going to be just a throwaway game against Brooklyn that we really wouldn't have cared about anyway. It's going to matter. There'll be games that we can't wait to see that are going to be highlighted because they're going to spend some time in Austin or Mexico City, because we, as a brand, in the eyes of our ownership, which encompasses a fair amount of Austin and zip codes, aren't enough. And it's thrown in my face every year. And forgive the inferiority complex when you continue to tell us, oh, no, we're staying here. But man, oh, man, did you know we're having a free concert? And we painted this mural this week. And we're going to take everybody involved to ice cream. It's like they're going to the ex's camp, and they got a better place over the week. And then they come home to regular old mom and dad, and they have to clean their room. And they're like, this sucks. I want to go back to Austin, and I want to play games and get computers and have everybody love us.
Do you think that computers are exclusive to Austin?
I don't know where that came from.
I was with you all the way up.
I was going to say Atari, but that didn't even work either.
I think a better thing would have been like a drone. Like they had drones in our hotel.
They had all the cool stuff, and now I got to come home and I got to mow the lawn. Wow, I want to go back up there. That's better there.
I will say, and I'm not trying to be an optimist, but this is probably for the greater good. I think.
See, don't tell me that. See, that's the kind of thing I hate. What do you mean greater? I'm not enough for the greater good. The Spurs.
I'm not saying that you're not enough, but don't you want Wemby in this era to be a worldwide phenomenon? Like it has that potential. And if you believe it has that potential, I think you got to be a little open-minded. I'm not saying that you're not, because nobody ever wants to be told they're not open-minded, but you've got to be open-minded to this is in the name of a much greater goal that will impact. You're giving out dimes to make dollars here.
I get what you're saying. It's
it's true. If you rationalize it yourself, it's true.
No, but the thing is, it doesn't have to be true.
You don't need to be selfish and be like, nobody could ever have me. No, suddenly I have to stay here. And stay here and love me. Love me.
Well, when this idea was hatched, when this harebrained idea of growing the brand and spending time elsewhere to kind of get more fans, we didn't have Victor. We didn't have
him. But like
now we got him.
Now
they'll come to us, baby. They're coming to us. They're already
on the subject of like these will be games that matter. It is kind of a bummer. It's like, okay, they're going to go play. And you mentioned Brooklyn. Like, they're going to go host, and I obviously use that word very loosely, the world champs. Like, that would be kind of cool to not have to give away. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to take a game. And to your point, like a weird throwaway game, like, Charlotte's coming to town? Cool. You know what I mean? You can have it. But, like, it would be kind of cool to see Jokic instead. Oh, Jokic is totally going to
miss
like
one of the MVP's game in our city because they're giving him to Austin. I mean, right now it doesn't matter because we're in the toilet. But eventually when these games matter, not only because we want to see a star that will only come to San Antonio once, but a game that will matter, that will have implications far-reaching, that we're going to just cede to the guys up north. And by the way, those that are in Austin, this whole week, the Spurs are kind of a sidebar. This is South by Southwest. It's a bunch of nerds. So yeah, I get where they are, but they also have shared interests going on. So the Austinites are kind of like, why now? It's like having an anniversary party on your birthday. Like, well, I've already got a party going on. I don't need another one.
Yeah, you're saying like this is the birthday party on like December 22nd.
Yeah, South by Southwest Austinites is kind of like our fiesta. I mean, these guys shut down for a couple weeks and just go nerd out. And that's just what they've done forever. And for Fiesta, it's kind of like, Scott, you know what we're going to do during Fiesta? We're going to have a pre-DSC celebration too. All at the same time. Like, why? Why are we doing that? And the Austinites are kind of like, why are you doing this now? We'd much rather have you in November. We'd much rather have you in May. So there's that. So not only do we not like it, Austinites are kind of like, well, I got enough going on. I'll squeeze you in.
Yeah, they're like, what time's the game? Because we're going out on the lake.
Yeah, wait, I got to go see Fat Boy Slim playing over at the Rocks.
Can you name a Fat Boy Slim song?
Well, I can. Yeah, I can just see Chris Walken dancing. That's all. I can't. I wonder if he's coming. Actually,
did you know that Stephen Jones was allegedly at South by Southwest earlier this week?
Well, of course he is. Of course he is. That would, you know what? That's the kind of rumor we need to put crumbs together. Hey, we have a standing rule here on the Huddle. Is if you are sent in by the coach, you get to call the play. What that basically says, if you call, you talk. Gino dialed 656-3776, 656 ESPN, even though we didn't ask. So that tells me this guy's got something to say. Welcome on, Gino. Spurs are in Austin. What do you think?
So I'm originally from Connecticut, and back in the 80s and 90s, the Celtics used to come down and play a 4-game series throughout the year at the Hartford.
Yeah,
Civic
at Hartford.
Center.
I went to a game there. Also a Whalers game.
Yeah, yeah, back in the day. But so, the reason that happened was, back in the day, what I understood was there was ownership that owned part of the Hartford. Assuming that's the same thing that's happening with the Spurs.
Well, we had a buy-in to the Spurs. Yeah, some of the ownership transferred over the last several years that involve, Michael Dell and some of the other big tech dudes that have bought into the Spurs. So there's some impetus behind not only just growing the brand, but, having a home game for some of the owners.
And so what?
Oh, let's get him back on. We lost, he seems to be breaking up. But Gino, as soon as he gets back on, I want to continue this conversation because this is a very relevant one with the Celtics back in the day sharing some time in Hartford because the ownership was weird. Can you imagine that today? Can you imagine the Celtics right now with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Kristaps and all these guys going, oh, next week when we're hosting the Lakers, we're going to be playing in the Hartford Civic Center because we're trying to grow the brand. Can you imagine?
I mean, it's when you put it in those terms, obviously it's really, really funny. I mean, I'm trying to think of, maybe the NHL Winter Classic is a little bit like this. You know what I mean? Like
that's the whole league. This is the NBA and our own ownership saying, you know what, San Antonio, you're not enough, man.
I'm trying to make it seem better in my mind because they do take away a game, but again, it's kind of or like the Field of Dreams game, but even then, it's a theme thing. You know what I mean? It's more it's about the thing more so than it is the teams. Yeah, there's not a real good comp.
I don't like it, and we shouldn't have to enjoy it. I get the reasoning, and you've told us enough why. We understand we're not enough. That there has to be more. That even though we're bigger and keep taking some of those cast-offs that are getting sick of that city, we need them because we're not enough.
Tough scene.
Tough scene.